podcast listeners. This is Ed Franklin with the Ed Franklin No Limits podcast. This is Raising 10, episode 12. And like always, my guests are always great, and I have a great guest on today. And it's going to align with a podcast that's coming out this week. And you're going to think this is pretty interesting. So, you grandparents out there or people that have young kids, pay attention to this podcast because it's very relevant to what you're doing. My guest is Raland Brunson. I said it right, right?
That is correct,
Roland. Okay, good.
Roland.
And Roland is a coach and a mediator and an author. We're going to talk a lot about his book. 'Cause that's kind of what we're doing here is talking about his book. And his book is called How to Hypnotize Your Child to Be Good Without Them Knowing It, which is an awesome title. We're not literally teaching you how to hypnotize your child. It's behavioral based. So don't think that we're going to put a little thing up here and go like this to hypnotize your child. That's not the case. So, and I want to tell you about his website is Magic Mind Bong. I said bong, isn't that funny? Magic Mind Bomb, and you can check it out. You can buy the book there. But let's get going, and then we'll just figure out how we're doing here. So, anyway, Roland, thank you for being on my podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe your background or something, and then we'll start the conversation.
All right. Ever since I was 14, I was really fascinated with talk therapy, emotions, relationships, and I love giving advice. I didn't have very good answers, but I always wanted to really get to the bottom of things when it comes to helping people out in their relationships and their emotions, and just how to basically deal with life.
Sure.
So I studied and I talked. I'm pretty bold. So I bumped into other therapists, got to know them, asked them, got their input, asked them questions, met with them, interviewed a lot of people, and then I started working with people and I started experimenting. I was really critical of myself. I wanted to make sure that what I did was effective. I
Sure.
want to get the job done because a lot of therapists they don't know what they're doing, and I don't want to criticize them because it's a tough field. It's a really tough field. But there's one thing that I've discovered in my psychotherapy, and that is, as general, we rush in assuming the problem when we don't know what the problem is,
Right.
and then we give these crazy solutions, and then we are frustrated when our people and clients don't follow those solutions, thinking that they're just irresponsible when they're not. But there's one thing that I discovered, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
And that is the bottom line when it comes to human behavior, and that is the subconscious mind. And there's a part of the subconscious mind that's a primitive part of the subconscious mind that's been around for hundreds of millions of years that runs the show. It dominates the behavior of your children and everybody else. It's the thing in your brain that creates all the impulses, the urges, and the addictions. You may have heard of this. It's called the amygdala. We have a nickname for it, the lizard brain, because it's been around for so long. So I decided to do a special study on the lizard brain and found out that when we're dealing, like I say, with people, we're dealing with their lizard brain. And the lizard brain has one job: survival. It acts on impulse to eliminate any kind of threat. So what it's doing, it's in charge of looking at your life. It's scanning your environment constantly. It doesn't matter where you go, who you talk to. Your lizard brain is scanning the environment for any possible threats. It has the mentality of a 3-year-old. It acts solely on impulse with no logic to back it up. That's
Now
why we're all fear-based.
let me back up to one thing you said about therapists in general, that a lot of them you talked to didn't really know what they were doing. Now, I know you don't mean that literally, but they're taking book learned thing, right? Something out of a book, and it's telling you this is this and this and this and this. But the thing is we're all so different. Our DNA is so different. Our environments, the way we grew up, are so different that you really have to adjust to that. So you kind of have to listen a lot, right? Communicate with your client, patient, whoever it is, so you can kind of get some background. Would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
here's the trick. The trick is how to listen. And the way to listen is what you're listening for. So you have an objective, you have a target.
Mhm.
So I came up with this book, How to Hypnotize Your Child to Be Good Without Them Knowing It. And that's ruffling a lot of feathers. It's highly controversial. I mean, I get a lot of people saying, you are not supposed to be able to do mind control on another person. That robs them of the freedom. It's manipulative to control someone's mind, to control their behavior. And I'm thinking, why not? Why not? I mean, my mom did it without me knowing it.
Well,
I
don't we
mean,
all do that though with people? Don't we all,
oh
right, try
yeah, well,
to,
absolutely. We
listen,
do it. We do it recklessly,
I've been in sales for
unintentional,
35
accidental.
years.
Oh, you've
And
been
in
in sales?
sales, yeah.
Oh,
And
you know all about that then.
when you're in sales, you're manipulating people. I don't You can use another word that's softer, but that's really what you're doing.
Oh, sure. You got your trigger words, right?
Sure. And you're
And it,
identifying their needs and things like
their
that. So
needs,
you are
yes.
listening, to
Oh,
find out what's
especially
up.
especially if you pay attention to their lizard brain, because the lizard brain is fear based. You say anything that triggers their fear, they'll go automatically tense up, automatically search for a solution impulse right now. So see, my mom, you see, my brothers, me, my brothers, and my sister, we grew up very well behaved. We were good kids, grew up normal. We were healthy. We had great lives.
Mhm.
And come to find out that our mom hypnotized us to be that way. Now, did I get all bent out of shape about that? I mean, can you imagine me calling at my mom, like, how dare you? You manipulated my brain. You hypnotized me to be good without my permission. You did not get my permission to control my life. No, in fact, I actually thanked what you hypnotized me to be good. Well, have a great life and be happy. Well, thank you very much. So I wanted to know what she did. She showed me a couple of the things that she did, but I would really went into it about how. Here's the trick: you do it without them knowing it. You bypass their conscious mind, and you've dealt with this. You're a parent. You've
Sure.
got the conscious mind. You've got they got their guards up. They're defensive, and you just quietly sneak behind the back door, say a few things, do a few things, and it changes their lizard brain, so their impulse is different. So they have the urge and the impulse to behave, to be good citizens, to be sensitive to other people without them realizing that it's they're following their impulse, which is what we all do.
So
Have
are you
you?
a parent, by the way?
Yeah, I have a
Okay.
daughter.
So that is your responsibility, as far as I'm concerned, as a parent, to teach your children how to behave correctly, right?
Sure.
You're not doing anything against their will. From your experience, you're teaching them that you cannot act like this here or there because it's not appropriate.
Yeah. So how do you do that?
So and we'll get to that, but so people that are criticizing what you're saying, I got news for you. They're doing the exact same thing when they have a client or a patient, right? They're listening correctly. Let's say they're
Yeah.
the best therapist in the world. They're listening correctly, and then they're offering them advice or ways to, deal with their feelings. It's exactly what you're doing. You're just giving Your mom gave you education, is what she did.
It was actually more than that.
Okay,
And
tell me.
this is what's wow. This is what's going to be kind of surprising to the probably to your listeners yourself.
Okay,
Because what we do is to see we have our lizard brains, parents are dealing with their lizard brains. So when the child is acting, their lizard brain is acting from a threat, then the parent's lizard brain is feeling threatened and it acts on impulse to combat the impulse defense mechanism of the child. So you got the parent struggling with the child, they're both struggling with each other, getting nowhere. And so what happens? What happens when you're threatened? You do one of three things. And this is the lizard brain's impulse. You'll either run, you'll hide, you'll freeze, or you'll fight, which is you'll become hostile. Parents 99% of the time they choose hostility to deal with the lizard brains of their parents, of their kids,
right.
because the parents are threatened. They don't realize this. They're reacting by impulse with no logic to a threat. And so when you react to the threat, you are seeing where the threat is coming from is the enemy. The lizard brain by nature is trained to eliminate the enemy. That's how you get rid of the threat. Destroy the enemy. So when the child is acting defensive or acting or misbehaving, and it's triggering the lizard brain of the lizard brain of the parent is saying, kill the enemy, use hostility, threaten them. use force and or bribe them to get them to do their job.
Now,
So it's
how early is this necessary to pay attention? I mean, you got to pay attention when they're a baby, but what age kind of does this kick in where the child starts to use their lizard brain? Or I mean, is it from birth?
no, it's all at all ages. Our lizard brains are a child all the time. When you're dealing with people,
Okay,
you're
that's what I
dealing
was
with
getting at.
children. You're
Okay.
dealing with children. We never grow up, all of us. And here's what's really cool. I made this incredible discovery. Our brains are anxious to be taught, anxious to be conditioned, anxious to be trained, open to being trained. And I'll give you a perfect example. It's called how you react to a child who is threatened. So this is how you look at it. Here's a little bit of a nugget I'm going to get from my book, okay? Because my book shows you exactly what to do. It shows you every example, every situation, so you'll be able to effortlessly. I'm talking about if you are experiencing frustration, well, you're just responding to your lizard brain. But my book shows you how to effortlessly manipulate could actually retrain the lizard brain of your child without them knowing. They'll start to behave. One example is this. Okay, view your child, if they're misbehaving, lying to you, being mean to their siblings, being insensitive, being irresponsible, being lazy, as they are reacting in fear. They are actually in fear. It may not look like it, but treat it like that. For example, let's just say that you've got your kid, like you were telling me about, you had your job was to mow the lawn, right? When you were a kid, to mow the lawn.
Yeah.
If you're the kid's lazy about mowing the lawn, then you have a tendency to want to threaten the kid. You go out there and mow that lawn right now. Come over there and beat your butt right this second. Okay, so now that kid's threatened. So lizard brain's like, okay, for my survival, I need to mow the lawn or I'll die, because it's all about survival. Okay, so I want you to imagine this. Let's just say that your kid is feeling really lazy about mowing the lawn, and you treat it like they're afraid, like they're actually terrified, which is true. The lizard brain is telling the kid that mowing the lawn is actually a threat to their survival. And so they become lazy, which is the lizard brain's impulse to escape the threat of having to mow the lawn. Okay, so I want you to imagine I was at the swimming pool, okay, and I'm watching this little kid, he's like 8 or 9 years old, standing at the edge of the diving board, about 3 feet above the water. And the mother is out there and encouraging the child. You can do this. I know you're scared, but it's only 3 feet, comforting without realizing it the lizard brain, showing the comfort, encouragement to the lizard brain of the child, because the lizard brain loves comfort. It doesn't want to be afraid. So after a while, the kid jumps off the board, lands into the water. A great celebration. Great job, you did it. Now I want you to imagine. Okay, let's just change the scenario. Okay, let's say that diving board, that kid standing on the edge of the diving board, represent a chore that he has to do, and he's terrified. What would it look like if the parent, the mother in the water, would have screamed at the child and say, "So help me, if you don't jump off that board, I'm going to come up there and beat your ass." I mean, the kid is going to jump, obviously, but everybody around them is going to be like, such an abusive mother. But yet we do that. We yell and scream at our kids. We threaten our kids when they need to do chores. They are standing at the edge of the diving board. When they're lazy, they're standing at the edge of the diving board, terrified to jump. They need to be, they first of all, comfort them,
Mm-hmm.
validate them, and be consistent. So, now I want to ask you something, okay? I'm assuming you were kind of a good kid growing up, well
I was a
behaved.
very good kid. I listened. I had two sisters and a brother that were older than me, and the closest one to me was 4 years older. So I had an opportunity to watch them get threatened, be lazy, or whatever. Yeah.
So
So yes, I was a good kid.
your lizard brain was paying attention and learned
Yeah.
what not to do and what to do in order for your survival. So you're pretty well behaved. Now you had to mow the lawn when you were a kid. Now, why did you mow the lawn? Why were you so responsible? Was it your dad, your mom, your brother, your sibling? Why did
Well,
you?
I think it was to avoid. Now, our parents didn't beat us, but they would have, right? If I didn't do. not beat us, but I would have had to suffer repercussions.
Right.
I always thought it was easier just to do what they asked me to do. It wasn't unreasonable, right? I wasn't doing anything unreasonable, mowing the lawn, keeping my room clean, I used to have to take care of the pool, things like that. And in turn, I got to do pretty much whatever I wanted to do, right? I got to go places, go to the movies. They'd give me money if I needed it, things like that. So I was rewarded for behaving.
So you were, did you feel like you were loved?
Yes, but we weren't a loving family, if that makes any sense. So we were not told every 5 minutes, I love you, right?
Right.
In fact, I have to tell you, and this, my audience might be surprised about this. I don't think my mom ever, I know she told me she loved me before, but I don't think it's 10 times in my life. I tell my
Uh,
kids 10 times a week. My dad never said he loved me. Now, I didn't think he didn't love me. We did stuff together. I used to ride on his motorcycle. We did things. So it just wasn't a mushy kind of thing, right?
but the actions were actions. You knew it by their
Oh, yeah.
actions that you were loved.
Sure.
All right.
And
Now,
I think my kids felt very loved growing up. I think they still do at this point, right? We were more, I would tell them more, I would touch them more. Like, I don't know, I don't think my dad, like, I'll hug my grandson. I don't ever remember hugging my dad, to be honest with you.
right.
So,
Well, to a child who is not used to being loved, but affectionate wise,
sure.
it might be awkward for them because the lizard brain part of the subconscious mind, we love home. This is an overlooked rule. We love what's familiar to us. That's why we will refuse to leave an abusive relationship or a situation because it's home to us. We have another name for that, the comfort zone. It's
Yeah.
familiar. The lizard brain is threatened by something that's not familiar. It's called homesickness. Now, homesick. Did you know that you could die of homesickness?
I'd imagine you could if you let your mind go wander enough. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you got people who leave home. They go to college or they go into the military, or something like that, and they feel homesick. It's uh, it's really hard on the heart. Depression. Depression is most of depression. A lot of depression is the result of a broken heart that just will not heal. And the reason why people stay in chronic depression is because they've not never been taught how to grieve. They're crying inside, but they have not had an opportunity to express and to grieve. And the lizard brain understands this. The lizard brain gets that depression and homesickness, actually, depression is a lizard's brain response to the threat of homesickness. Depression can be comforting, sadness could be comforting. It's our way of dealing with it, it's our way to survive when we're going through something like that. So, what's important is you pay attention to the basic things of the lizard brain. Number one, the child needs comfort. Number two, be consistent. For example, I've got an example in my book of one technique. One technique is you got this Alice is her daughter, and she's playing with her toys, and she doesn't want to leave her toys and go to bed. It's time for bed. So mom says, Alice, it's time for bed. Alice ignores mom because, man, she's really into her toys, and it would be a threat to her survival if she were to leave those toys, a threat to her survival. So she's just doing what her lizard brain thinks it should do. Ignore mom. Mom says again, pick up your toy. No, it's time for go to bed. Time to go to bed. Quit playing. It's time to go to bed. So the proper thing to do is what mom did, and that is after several times of doing this, walks in there to be with Alice. Alice needs help. Takes Alice by the hand. Now, as soon as she takes Alice by the hand, the lizard brain is freaking out, causing her to go into a tantrum. Tantrums is a result of being threatened. That's all that is. That's all a tantrum is. It's basically a reaction to fear. Alice goes into a big tantrum. Mom ignores her lizard brain, ignores her tantrum, validates her feelings. I know, honey. I know it's terrifying. I know it's horrible. I know that, man, not being able to play with your toys could kill you. I mean, just, you can actually be a little bit dramatic because lizard brains are dramatic. And that's the language of the lizard brain, is drama. So it's like, oh man, I tell you, this could kill you. I don't want you to die. I promise you, you're going to be okay here. And she's screaming, and she's gently and lovingly taking her to bed and puts her to bed and spends time with her. Spending time with a child is powerful for the conditioning of the lizard brain.
Mhm.
So the next night, what happens? Same thing. Mom does the same thing. Mom doesn't threaten the lizard brain of the child. Mom comforts the lizard brain of the child, but still holds her child to be responsible. Takes her by the hand because she needs help, takes her into her bedroom. And after a while of this, Alice automatically just gets up and goes to bed. Why? The lizard brain was trained that it's good for her survival to go to bed. And it's not a threat to her survival to leave the toys. This happens. I've seen this. This absolutely works 100% of the time, especially with teenagers. Now you get it. Now you've got teenagers. Am I right? You got
Uh,
your
grandkids. Grandkids. I don't have my kids. My youngest is 30, almost 30 years old.
now. There are two different types of personality in a person.
Hmm.
One is task oriented, and one is people oriented. Now, the people oriented type of personality might appear that they're lazy. You know, like, would you get your butt in here and do what you're supposed to do? Will you sweep the garage like you're supposed to do? If the child's personality is people oriented, they may need to kickstart them, you to be with them. It's as simple as that. Do you need me to be with you? No, I can do it. You haven't been doing it. You've been lazy about this. Okay, I'll be with you. I will take you. I will spend time with you. I won't do it for you and be with the child. It's really hard. It's a lot more difficult for the child to run away from the parent who's lovingly holding their hand while they're taking them to do their chore because the lizard brain loves comfort. And if that's the case, the lizard brain is not going to give the child the impulse to run
Right.
unless it doesn't trust it at first. It's really interesting how that works.
So let me back you up for a second because we were talking about people not dealing with trauma, right? Or uh, you use a different word, but I do I want to do more public speaking, and I used to do public speaking. I want to because everybody I've ever met, if I talk to them long enough, they tend to tell me things about their life or right that might be holding them back. And
Right.
my theory is that you cannot be a really good leader if you're dwelling on trauma, right?
Right.
If you're dwelling on these things and that you're not the best person of yourself, you really need to deal with trauma. And we all have it, right? We've all been through horrific trauma in our life. And it's subjective. So it could be, it could be when you were 5 years old, you had to put your dog down versus it could be losing a spouse or something like that.
Right.
So that's a point. Now, can you train, if you're training your kids to deal with this fear, with this lizard brain, can you train yourself?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Talk
It's
about
called
that.
accountability.
Okay.
Admit next time you feel afraid, it's really easy when you know your lizard brain's acting up because we all deal it. Okay. As soon as you feel fear or anger, that's your lizard brain. The first step to deal with your own lizard brain, to retrain your lizard brain, is number one, be aware of it. Admit it to yourself. Oh, this is my lizard brain talking. Now, when you're watching TV, your lizard brain is going to freak out. I don't know if any person has got done watching the news and afterwards like, I'm so inspired. I think the world is going to work out. I
Right.
think my life is going to work out. I want to watch the news again tomorrow. No, fear, the beauty about fear or the purpose of fear is it makes you wide and alert. If you're watching the news and you feel fear, you're going to want to be aware of tomorrow's news so you can be aware of what's going on. You're scanning your environment for possible threats and you want to know what threats are coming. And if you believe that the news is going to let you know of any possible threats that's going to show up, you're going to be addicted to watching the news because you're going to trust that's the truth that's out there. The first thing you do, recognize that it's the lizard brain acting on impulse without any kind of logic whatsoever. Number two, anger. The purpose of anger for the lizard brain is it gives you the courage to take on the enemy, the insane, illogical courage to take on and eliminate the enemy. That's why a lot of us will go into hostility. When you're with someone and they start becoming defensive, guess what? I don't care how nice you think you are. I don't care how brilliant or beautiful you think you are. You're a threat to them. Own it.
That
Admit it
is
to yourself.
that is my that's me, right? So when I'm I'll go into a situation very people oriented, right? A networking event or something. And if somebody not necessarily disagrees with me, but if they attack me, like whatever, I become very, I'll attack harder, right?
Hostile.
That's my thing. I don't, I had a dream the other night and I was speaking. I was at a stadium and it had like 10,000 people in the stadium. And I was speaking, I had a microphone, I was mic'd up and I was speaking to these 10,000 people. Now that doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I woke up very happy that I was in that situation. I can get up on a stage and grab a mic and talk. Most people can't, right?
Right.
They get frozen up. That has never bothered me in my life. It still doesn't bother me, and it's one of the reasons. And it makes me feel very good to get up and give somebody. And you have to look at it that way. You have to look at it that you're giving them something, not taking from them. I'm not selling them something. I'm offering them something.
Right.
And I heard a doctor the other day saying, if you had $100 bills, take a person that hates getting up and talking in front of people, but there was 100 people there and you had $100 bills and all you were doing is going up on a stage to hand them out to, you'd have no problem speaking then, right? Here's a hundred
Right.
dollars. You're giving them something.
Right.
Is that part of this whole thing? Is
Yeah.
those behavioral techniques that you learn?
Yeah, it's part of the lizard brain. The lizard brain, and I mentioned it in my book, How to Hypnotize Your Child to Be Good Without Them Knowing It. Solutions. The lizard brain. In fact, that's a good segue to this. The lizard brain loves solutions. For example, if you have a solution to someone else's problem, the lizard brain is going to give you the impulse, call you into action to provide that solution.
Right.
That's why we love being asked the advice. I mean, when was the last time somebody asked you for advice? You're like, well, screw that. I'm not going to give you advice. Go bug somebody else. It ain't going
Well,
to
because
happen.
I have 8 kids, right? I get that often, right? I'll just get my kids bouncing things off me. What do you think about this? Or this happened in our life. And I can say, well, and I don't ever give people answers. What I will tell them is, look, I'm happy to sit in the mud with you and let you bleed out to me, right? Tell me issues. I've had some people that have been through some very traumatic things. And I never say to them, well, you should do this. I never do that. I just sit and listen. Because really, sometimes all they need, they have the solution. They have to talk it out so they can come up with a solution.
Have you read my book? Because that's exactly what I talk about in my book. That's interesting you
So
mentioned. That's true. It's powerful, isn't
you copied me.
it?
Just kidding. Just kidding.
I was watching your life and took notes.
Yeah.
That's true. It's absolutely true. Time is powerful to the lizard brain. And if you ask yourself, if you ask any parent what their number one challenge is with their child, it is the behavior. And it affects the relationship. And then the parent feels like losers, and then they compare themselves to other parents. They're wondering why other parents are doing good and why they're doing crappy. And then their lizard brain says, "Oh my gosh, you're a loser," and it's horrible. But understanding this will really help. And I know, I trust this. Okay, here's one principle: truth is simple. If it's complicated, there's something missing. It's not. No. If anything is complicated, there's something wrong with that. Because when it comes right down to it, solutions and the truth is so simple and basic, and nature is meant it to be that way. If you believe in a God in heaven, which I do, I believe that all He wants for us to have simple, beautiful lives, and strife and all that kind of stuff is the results of the lizard brain.
Well, there's no doubt we overcomplicate everything, right? Especially Americans. We have to know the answer to everything, whether you're a Catholic or a Mormon or a Jew or you have to know the answers to everything. And we don't have to have the answers, by the way. Now we did not have a lot of behavioral problems in our household with raising 8 kids, but there were a few, right? And talking about this thing, there was times when I'd overreact, right? No doubt about it. And I tell people on my podcast when you're talking about your kids' behavior, it's in the whole scheme of things, it's not that big a deal if they don't do something or they say something, but I didn't have that patience as when I was younger, right? None of us had that patience when we were younger. And I would quick, shout at the kids or whatever, to try to get them motivated. Now, what I was doing was I was telling them how to react to me the next time. And it's probably going to be with dishonesty, right?
You're right.
Shit,
You're
last
so
time
true.
I
That's
told him
true.
that, he went through the roof. I'm not telling him that this time. You tell him. Well, I ain't telling him. You know what I mean? They
Mm-hmm.
probably had meetings when I wasn't there about who was going to be the one to have to go tell dad that they broke a lamp or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
But I mean, obviously, as I'm older, I'm Monday morning quarterbacking myself, right? I can go back and say, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that way. But when you're in it, it's difficult, especially when you're
Right,
young parent and
right.
you're working two jobs, you're doing whatever. So for your parents out there that have kids now, yeah, but I want to let me finish this thought, and then I got another thing for you. You need to just take a step back and look at the totality of the circumstances. Is this a big deal in the whole scheme of things? Now, your book could lend itself to, and I'm not saying this is the truth, but this is maybe people think this. You're giving the this generation, you're letting them off the hook, right? By too much over loving or things like that. Sometimes you got to put your foot down. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm a baby boomer.
Oh yeah,
So
okay.
we think that everybody past baby boomers, everybody younger than us, is lazy, right? That's kind of the that's kind of the general consensus. You guys don't understand how hard it could be, or we came home, left when the sun came up and came back when the sun went down, and blah blah blah. It's all that street lights, and
Right,
we
right.
had to dial a phone. We didn't have computers. We didn't have all this, and it was harder for us. And then this new generation, I say Gen X. I'm not sure. I'm ready, Kevin, to keep up with all these generations.
I know,
Are
I know. I
they're
hear you.
over parented, right? Like we're saying, oh, little Jimmy should get a trophy for peeing in the toilet, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably where you're getting a lot of resistance. Now, we as parents, we were definitely in charge of things, and the kids knew how far where our boundaries were, right, and how far they could push it. I had more problems with my kids after 18 than I did before 18
Oh, is that right? Uh-huh.
because now they're out making decisions on their own,
Right,
saying, "Well, I can do whatever I want." I don't know, well, sure you can, but there's going to be consequences too. If you shoplift, they're going to arrest you, right?
right.
If you want to risk that, it's up to you. You don't have to worry about if I'm mad at you. You got to worry about the police at this point. So that lizard brain, obviously, still
Yeah.
active, doing all those things, and this is why this podcast went to so many episodes, is because there's so many different things, and this is just another one of those factors, and
Yeah,
maybe
I mean,
more of a controlling factor.
right. And it's like, are you, I mean, let's honestly, do you really want to hurt your kid? I mean,
Yeah,
if you knew that if your child had to do the dishes and it's gonna bandage, it's gonna damage them emotionally for the rest of their life. It's gonna ruin their life. You're gonna make them want to do that. You're gonna make them want to do something that's gonna like cause them permanent injury, affect their life, and they'll end up killing themselves 10 years later because you did that. No, that's why parents give in because the lizard brain is so dramatic. It acts like it's going to die. It's like when the kid has to do their chore, the lizard brain of the child is going to be like, oh my gosh, do not make me do this. It's like the most horrible thing in the world. You know what I mean? Mom, I hate you, dad. I hate you, mom. I hate, 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 which is the lizard brain being hostile, trying to take down the enemy. But what's important is you ignore the words of their threat. You ignore the threat. You ignore them saying, I hate you. I hate you're a mean mom. You're a mean dad. I can't believe you're like this. Ignore that, but make them do their chore. And what I mean by make is don't threaten them. They may need you. If their lizard brain has not been trained, they're going to need you to be with them. Just like you were talking about. Take their hand if they're young or if they're older as an adult or if they're a teenager. Be with them, comfort them, saying, listen, I'll help you. And that's really crazy. I know this might sound sarcastic and a threat, but the lizard brain, if you talk to the lizard brain, you'll say something like this: the last thing I want in the world is for you when you make your bed that the bed is going to choke you to death. I
right.
don't want the bed to kill you. I mean, that might sound sarcastic. That might sound like it would insult them, but you're talking to the lizard brain, and that kind of language is comforting because the lizard brain really does think the bed's going to kill them. It really does believe they're going to die. It really does believe it's going to be injurious. So when you say to them, hey, the last thing I want is for that bed to kill you or those dishes to kill you or sweeping to kill you or hurt you. I'll
Yeah,
be there with you. I will come there with you. I will be there and assist you. And I will be on guard for any kind of threat. And I want you to know this works every time. You don't have to yell at the kid. You don't have to argue. And then when you're with the child, because you're spending time with them, you watch what kind of conversation you'll have. It'll be memorable. They'll start saying
Well,
things to you.
and we
You'll
communicated with our kids a lot. I talk about that a lot on a good level, right? The what we did with chores, I had six daughters at home at one time, right? Seven women in the house, and one of the dogs was a girl. We would schedule our chores for Saturday morning, and we'd all do chores for an hour, right?
okay.
And we had a chore board, and it would rotate. So one Saturday you did this, one Saturday you did that. And when we would eat dinner, you can imagine dinner was, a lot, right? We had eight people at the table and 10 at times. And
Wow.
everybody would just pitch in, right? And we get it done quicker. So our chore thing was, look, if you guys get all this done in an hour, we're going to go do something, right? We're going
Right.
to ride bikes, go surfing, go camping. We're going to go do something fun. So it was always, it's no big deal. Everybody's got to pitch in. There's a lot of people here. So it worked out well. Now, I've yelled at my kids, there's no doubt about it. And I look back now and went, wasn't wise at certain times. Sometimes I had to shock the shit out of them, but most of the time I could have handled it 100% different, right? So we kind of had that we kind of had it resolved before. And I thought we talked to our kids a lot more than Adam. So when my kids will call me up, let's say my daughter calls me up, she's my oldest, she's 39, and she'll say, I have this job promotion that I'm looking at possibly taking, and this is what it is. What do you think about it? And I said, what would you tell your daughter to do? This kind of goes back to that. I'd never do something to make you get hurt. And she'd say, well, why do you ask that? I said, because you'll never steer your kids wrong, right? You'll use every ounce of good information you have to give them advice at that time. Now, 10 years ago, it might have been wrong, but now, what would you tell your daughter to do? She goes, well, I'd tell her to take it because it's a great opportunity. I said, you just answered your own question.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you that too. But I want you to understand it's coming from a parent. You're asking a parent, I'm going to put you in your parent's shoes because she has a daughter. And you tell me what you would do if she asked you the same question.
Well, not a lot of kids are free to ask their parents advice because they don't want to be lectured and they don't want to be criticized.
Oh yeah, I don't do that. Listen, when my mom was very good. When I turned 18, none of what I did was her business. She would say, it's your business. You're 18. You're grown up. And this is kind of a baby boomer thing to say. We grew up quicker. We grew up a little earlier than the kids these days, right? So I was working at 14, then I had a good job at 16 and blah, 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 blah. So I do the same thing with my kids. It's not my business. I don't care if you want to talk to me about it, I'll listen. If you want a reaction, I'll give you one. But if you don't ask or tell me. I don't. Have you ever said to somebody, I have a question for you, but I don't want you to answer it. I just need to ask the question,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because you need to answer it for yourself. So I
Right.
kind of treat my kids like that. I don't get into their business. They're all over 18. Whatever they do, they have to deal with for longer than me, right? I'll be dead before
Right.
them.
Right. Well, see, that's really important because I don't know a parent who does not want to be a good parent.
Right.
I believe that every abusive father out there does not abuse their kid for the intention of turning their kid into a bad kid. It's the intention of turning their kid into a good kid. They just don't know how.
They're
They want
trying
to
to
beat the
scare
why
them
why
into, yeah, they're
they want to
trying to
beat the
scare them out of being bad.
scared about them being bad. Beat them so they can be good.
Mm.
Be cruel to them so they can yell at them so they can be good. Every parent, by nature, it's a motherly, fatherly instinct that goes way back hundreds of millions of years. We want our kids to develop and be great in life. We just don't know how to deal with their lizard brain, and especially on our own. And then we screw them up, and then they screw their kids up. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm a great parent. Really? What's your secret to behave, child? I threaten them. Is that right? Well, you know what happens when you threaten a kid? You know what happens when you threaten a kid? You do those dishes or come in there beat your ass. They're going to do. They end up being the kind of boss that have workers who dread coming in on Monday because they're going to be treated like the parents treated them. They don't want to be yelled at. They don't want to be threatened.
So
And
my
there you
last
have it.
my last podcast was about what kind of culture you create, and we talked about this in our conversation.
Right. Right.
What kind of culture you create in the household, and what that tells me what culture you're going to take to the workplace. So my dad drank a lot, and when my dad drank, I didn't even know him, right? He was a completely different person. So if I told the story of me growing up with my dad being a drunk and us, my mom having to work one or two jobs and all, it would sound sad, but it's not because what my mom trained us is that your dad, what he does is his business, and you have no
Yeah.
control over what your dad does. So we steered clear of him usually when he drank. He wasn't violent. I mean, I'd seen that happen. Never violent with me when he was drinking, but so we kind of steered clear of him, and which is a shitty way to grow up, but it was fine. I mean, I feel like I don't have any issues from that. My mom was really the rock, so she taught us.
Okay.
But it's kind of back to that lizard thing. So when you drink, does that affect your lizard brain? I guess it
Uh,
can. Could
it,
enhance it, maybe. I don't know.
I would say that it does not, because your lizard brain is going to act whether you're drunk or not. Your lizard brain is constantly scanning the environment for threats. So if you're drunk, if you're drinking, and your conscious perception of the world, you might see a threat that's not a threat, and your lizard brain goes, "Oh, that's a threat. I gotta either run, I gotta either hide, or I gotta confront the enemy and get rid of it." So that's why a lot of people who are drunk, they are easily threatened by things. They can become angry because they're telling the lizard brain, "Hey, there's a threat. Let's go eliminate the enemy." And when you're drunk, you seem to have more courage to do insane things.
We
So
all done that, I guess. Yeah, I guess.
insane courage to take on the enemy and get rid of the enemy. The wars of this world, all of it, all conflict is the lizard brain competing with another person's lizard brain. That's all that is. And
So
the lizard brain doesn't know how to get along with people.
your book explains this theory, right? Obviously, yeah. Show it, get it up there. So there's your book. You guys want to check that out, and if you go to the website magicmindbomb.com, you can buy the book there. He doesn't have it on Amazon yet, but he's working on it. So,
Yep.
but and then your book has some solutions, right? Has some examples. You gave a couple examples already that it has. Um, so this is an interesting concept. I mean, I think it's stuff that I've thought about, but never knew that there might have been some foundation for it.
Yeah. What if?
Yeah.
What if? What if it was possible to have your children by nature have the instinct to just want to do the right thing, to be sensitive with others, to get along with others, to welcome the world as an adventure instead of being threatened, and taking on life, having beautiful relationships, having a beautiful life? What if it were possible that you can reach inside of the lizard brain, alter it a little bit by how you talk to them and some of the simple things you do? What would that be like? Now, does that sound ridiculous? Does that sound like la la land? But yet, at the same time, you see behaved kids, and you're thinking probably to yourself, well, they were probably born that way. Oh, there's just some kids that are born rotten and some kids that are not
Oh
born
no, and I've
rotten.
I've talked about culture and environments and listen, I've always said we screw our kids up, right? We put them in a school system that's horrible. By they can fly at 4 years old and they want to commit suicide at 18. So something's happening in between there.
Yeah,
And this is kind of the foundation of where bullies come from too, right? So
sure.
bullies have this overactive, not
Lizard brain.
overactive, but they're definitely giving into their lizard brain, using it as a
Survival.
crutch, survival instead of um, for good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no, my last podcast, you should check it out because I did talk about parents that I would be around that had good cultures, and I wanted to be around those parents, right? And we all got along really well. And then there was other ones that were questionable, and I didn't really want the kids being around those households. Now, my mom had a great saying to me. She says, "Ed, you can be a good influence as much as you can be a bad influence on somebody." So she didn't worry about some of the people I hung out with. We're pretty questionable kids, but I was so I would I knew what the consequences would be if I was shoplifting or something like that. So I would talk them out of it a lot of time and say, "Dude, if you do that, you're going to get in trouble." And they'd say, "Well, come on, let's go." I said, "I'm not doing it." You that met my dad. I'm not doing that. I don't want to tell him what
Right.
we did. We were doorbell ditching some houses one night and he caught us doing it. My dad did, and he was not happy. Made me apologize to the neighbor and kind of explained to me why it was a bad idea, right? We're annoying this person. And, back in the day when I'd never known ever rings my doorbell now, but back then, that's how you would ring someone's
That's what we
doorbell.
did. That's
Yeah.
how we had fun. Yeah.
Well, we don't do it. Yeah. Well, he caught me doing it one time and never did it again after that night. I can tell you that. And he didn't hurt me or anything. He just explained to me. And my dad was pretty big guy and tattooed and all that. And so he got the point across pretty well to us. But
Yeah.
anyway, well, I think this is great. I think the book's going to be great. I'm going to get it and I'm going to read it and then I'll give you a kind of a review on it.
Yeah. Thank you. And
But
I hope it helps. It's helped everyone that I've shown this to. It's been 100% effective. So
I
I
think
hope.
it's a I think it's a lot of common sense, but I don't think I ever knew if there was a switch or something in your brain, right?
Right.
But this gives me a little bit better foundational information for my own for my podcast, obviously, and for my own uh, knowledge, and for my grandkids' knowledge and my kids'
Right.
knowledge. So
Right.
yeah, it's pretty interesting. So my kids all they have a little bit different parenting techniques, you know, between 8 kids. But I think in the most part, they're all doing a really good job, and their kids are very well behaved.
Well, I wonder why.
Well, I hope it. I always tell people. I said I have 20 grandkids, and they go, "Oh my God!" I said, "There's two reasons. Either we did a horrible job, and they're going to show us and do it right, or it was a pleasant experience for them, and they want to enjoy the same pleasant experience." Because I tell people all the time, my biggest success, I have two successes that I'll never be, that are always number one tied. It's my relationship with my wife right now and my kids. Those are my two biggest successes in my life.
Right.
And obviously, this is what the podcast has taken back to me as raising kids. I mean, I could talk about management and leadership and all these other things, which I know, but it's really the foundation of that was being a parent, you know.
Yep.
So, Raland, I really appreciate you being on, Roland. And again, the website is magicmindbomb.com. You can buy his book. It's 1375 online. There's a lot more information there. It tells a lot more about the author. You guys can always comment or ask questions on my podcast, and I can get them to him. So, thank you for being a guest on here. You gave us a lot of good information, and I like you have this kind of fun personality. It's not so stiff, right?
Great.
I've had some doctors on and stuff like that that have just been, and they were great. They were great guests, but very strict, very like an engineer, right? Very much walk the line of this professionalism. Not that
Sober.
you're not professional. You're having some fun with this thing, and I like it. So
No, I'm not a professional. I don't ever want to be.
yeah, I was wanting to do some speaking at a place, and the guy says, unless you have an alphabet of letters behind your name, you'll never get a speaking gig. And I said, well, you're wrong, first of all, because there's tons of people out there without alphabets behind their name. And I'm sorry that you feel that way because you're missing out, but that's the way it was.
Right.
So anyway, I'm going to do an outro here, and don't get off yet. I'm going to talk to you. This is the Ed Franklin No Limits podcast. This was Raising 10, episode 12. My guest is an author. All kinds of information on his website. The Magic Mind Bomb, not bong, like I said in the beginning. That would be the wrong direction to go. You can always get a hold of me at edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com. Go to my website, edfranklinnolimits, all one word.com. Check it out there. Check out the website. Check out some more things. I have some new things coming up. So thank you for listening. Keep listening, and I will see you all very soon.